All right, welcome back everyone to the deep dive. We got a really cool one today. It's all about Pokemon. Yeah, those pocket monsters we all know and love. But we're going deeper than just catching them all. We're going to be digging into some of the hidden secrets, theories, origins, trivia, stuff that maybe even some hardcore fans haven't heard before. You ready to dive in? Let's start with one that's kind of sad, actually. You know, Cubone, that little Pokemon that always wears its dead mom's skull.
Yeah.
Pretty dark, right? But there's this whole theory that Cubone is actually baby Kangaskhan that lost its mother. Makes you think, look at them side by side. Cubone, Marowak, its evolved form, and Kangaskhan. They got that bony head crest, the way they stand up straight. It's almost like they could be related, part of the same, family line. And it kind of gets even deeper when you look at Japanese folklore. Death and mourning are often shown with symbols and imagery. Like there's this fox spirit, the kitsune. It's said to wear the skulls of its parents as like a sign of respect, So maybe Cubone's skull is kind of like that, a nod to these old beliefs. It's a theory, anyway.
What do you think? Moving on to another Pokemon with some mystery surrounding its origin, we got to talk about Ditto, that pink blob that can, transform into anything. But here's the thing. Ditto has a lot in common with Mew. You know Mew, the mythical Pokemon that's said to be the ancestor of all Pokemon? Yeah, they're both pink. They weigh the same. And get this, they're the only Pokemon that can learn Transform. It's pretty wild. So, naturally, some folks think Ditto's actually a failed clone of Mew. Like maybe someone tried to make a copy of you and it went wrong and boom, you get Ditto. Which, when you think about it, says something about the science of the Pokemon world, right? Like, how advanced are they if they can try to clone legendary Pokemon? Are there other failed experiments out there? It's kind of creepy when you think about it too much. All right, let's go way back now, back to the original games, Red and Blue. Remember Missing No? That glitched out mess of pixels. It wasn't just some random error, though. It was like a peek behind the curtain of the game's code. Basically, it was a memory thing. See, the games used hexadecimal values, which are like, codes, to give each Pokemon a unique ID. But because of some oversights in the code, some of these numbers were missing. And when the game ran into those gaps, it tried to fill them with whatever it could find. And that's how Missing No was born. And the craziest part, players figured out that if you ran into Missing No, it could duplicate items in your inventory. So this weird glitch became like the ultimate cheat code. It's funny how these mistakes can become legendary, right? Speaking of legends, did you know that Pokemon was almost a lot darker? Satoshi Tajiri, the guy who created it, got the idea from collecting insects as a kid. He imagined this world where you'd catch these pocket monsters and they'd battle each other. And yeah, it was supposed to be a bit more intense, a bit less kid-friendly. Thankfully, things changed as they were making it. And we got the Pokemon we all know and love. But if you look closely, you can still see hints of that original darkness, especially in some of those Pokedex entries. I mean, some of those Pokemon are described as straight-up dangerous, even evil. It kind of reminds me of those old Japanese monster movies, the kaiju films, like Godzilla. Those are all about fears and anxieties, Like Godzilla came from the whole nuclear bomb thing. It's interesting how those themes carry over. One last thing before we wrap up. I want to talk about names, specifically Pokemon names, because sometimes things get lost in translation, The original Japanese names often have way more depth and meaning. Take Gyarados, for example. That big, scary water type. Its Japanese name, Gyaradosu, comes from kaiju. Yeah, like those giant monsters we were just talking about. It's a subtle hint at Gyarados' power, and maybe even its destructive side. Then there's Machamp, that four-armed fighting machine. Its Japanese name is Kairiki, which means, superhuman strength. Pretty fitting, right? So yeah, next time you're playing Pokemon, take a second to look up the Japanese name of your favorite Pokemon. You might find some cool connections or hidden meanings. Well, that's our deep dive into the world of Pokemon for today. We've covered a lot of ground, from sad backstories to glitches to cultural stuff. What was the most surprising thing you learned today? And what other Pokemon mysteries are out there waiting to be uncovered? I guess that's something for you to think about. Until next time, trainers.